EKUMEKU War, how the Igbos resisted Britain for over 31 years till 1914 when Nigeria was formed. Aside the indirect rule system of the British, the Igbo resisted and gave them a headache. EKUMEKU resistance is a war over land resources. The Igbo fought over the British for over 31 years. The resolutions of the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 gave European nations the right to lay claim to lands and resources in Africa. Britain, who had engaged in the trade with coastal cities before and during the 19th century, made their bold intentions to covet resources and rule over the indigenous nations all over Africa. The Igbo were the first to resist the British invaders, and this led to protracted war. They put up fight against the superior power of the suppressive British. The EKUMEKU movement was the name of the Igbo army that held the British at bay and fought them for 31 years. The EKUMEKU movement consisted of a great number of attacks and uprisings by the Anioma people of Igbo land against the British from 1893 to 1914. The EKUMEKU warriors were bound by a secret oath and meticulously utilized guerrilla tactics. Period. Shout out to guerrilla tactics. To attack the British Royal Company, who were determined to penetrate Igbo land. The EKUMEKU warriors were drawn from thousands of Anioma youths from all parts of Anioma land. As the war rages on, the EKUMEKU warriors defended their rights to live peacefully without foreign interjection. While the British used heavy armaments, they destroyed homes, farms, and roads by bombardment. The British invaded Indoni in 1870 and bombarded Onitsha Ado on November 2nd, 1897 from River Niger. This set the tempo for the rest of the war. The Royal Niger Company was commanded by Major Festing. They engaged the Anioma people of Igbo Uzo in 1938. The battle was so severe in Owa Okunzu in 1904. The commander W.E.B. Crawford requested for more arms from the British headquarters to crush the Western Anioma communities. The people of Owa again in 1906 engaged the British in a gruesome battle that consumed the lives of British commander S.O. Crewe. Exactly, that's what you get next time. Ogwashi Uku faced the British on the 2nd of November 1909 and dealt a heavy blow to the British, who sustained many casualties with the death of H.C. Chapman. The EKUMEKU became a formidable force in Igbo land and was a great source of nationalism for the Anioma people. It also served as a hunting corps that held together various towns who were independent of each other, and in the past, the Igbos were a republican people, and each town had a leadership that was drawn from the oldest of men and families. And this may be the reason why the British and the Igbos may not necessarily be. Again, this would have, set the stand out the tone for the relationship that the British would have with the Igbos, and that makes sense because we know that, of course, the British handed over power to the North, and of course, the British must have told the North, how to exert power, especially on the Igbos, because the Igbos were the. See, don't play with Igbos. Don't disrespect man like Igbos. Excuse me, 31 years. Who does that? And to think that that formation of Nigeria is really not even necessarily just Northerners against Nigeria. It's probably the beef and the saltiness that the British had from the lost battles that they had, because with the undermining of Africans as well, they are probably just taken aback extremely, because they would not have expected that the resistance would be durable and would be, would also increase as well for 31 years. Shout out to our ancestors, because those people, they did not come to play. The war would have lasted longer and possibly ended in a British defeat if the Anioma people had equivalent firepower and more allies from other greater Igbo kingdoms and towns. But even at that point, other tribes were facing the British on their own. That is very true, especially with the Benin Empire, and let's not even talk about the Northern Caliphate. And around this time, this 1900s till 1914, this was when Lord Lugard was on his killing spree. So again, not gonna lie, let's even cut some slack for the northern people, because they themselves, oh my days. If you look at history and look at the map, we're talking from northern Nigeria plus the middle belt and some neighboring countries as well, made up the Northern Caliphate. And Lord Lugard, that man, we'll come back later to him. After almost 20 years of battle, British decided to strike with great force. In December 1902, they sent a powerful expedition to Anyoma. A great number of towns were destroyed, civilians and soldiers alike were killed, their leaders were arrested and imprisoned. Yeah, that is just oof. After this, the British were sure that they had suppressed the EKUMEKU military cult and victory was theirs. The British officers boasted the EKUMEKU and other secret societies have been completely broken. To their greatest surprise, 2 years later in 1904, the fearless EKUMEKU rose again. The Igbo are a proud and egalitarian people. They don't go down that easily. When the EKUMEKU started their renewed campaign, they changed tactics and abandoned the guerrilla warfare style of 1989 for individual defense of each town. The last battle began in 1909. There was a succession dispute between Ogwashi Uku. The British tried to remove the rightful king and enthrone somebody else. The temerity of these people. The temerity. Imagine coming to somebody's land and trying to dethrone. Coming to question authority. Imagine the audacity. Well, Nzekwe, the son of the last Obi, sensed the plot of the British and went to war with them to fight for his inheritance. On November 2nd, 1909, the British sent an expedition to Ogwashi Uku to capture him, but they failed. No amount of firepower at that point could defeat or quench the sympathy and dedication of the people towards the EKUMEKU. In Asaba, the sympathy for the EKUMEKU was so high that people had a disposition to throw off the already British government in certain parts. At the time, the acting lieutenant governor of the southern provinces sent an agitated telegram to Lagos. After these reinforcements were sent from Lokoja for another confrontation at Akegbe, the war raged on till 1914 when the EKUMEKU movement was defeated. That was the same year the northern and southern protectorates of Nigeria were joined as one country in 1914, the day Nigeria was formed, the day that shaped what we have till date right now. Don't play with our ancestors. These people were fighting till the last drop of blood. Do you guys even know about the Igbo landing? Even during the slave trade, when Igbos noticed that, guy, like they're about to take us to the Caribbean, at the time they'd already done some how do you call it, some takeovers. So they planned within themselves to take over, but then of course the white people on the ships, they obviously had more power and more ammunition. So what they did was that they realized that like would rather die than be slaves, and a lot of Igbos literally jumped off and went into the sea because they refused to be slaves. So that vim, that power, we need to get back to it, because listen, there is no way anyone can literally enslave you with your own consent. God forbid. Put what you think about this in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.